do that?
Well, Bill C-9 kicks
Why
off
the hell would they?
yesterday or today. Bill C-9 went into place. Basically, anything is considered hate speech now. Absolutely anything is hate speech now. And
Sure. Yeah, absolutely it is. Well, the thing is that we hate these people. We absolutely hate them. The people that are doing this to us, we despise them.
mhm,
And they're not in power legally. They bribed 5 conservative MPs to cross the floor in Parliament to get these
mhm,
things passed.
mhm.
Right? They disenfranchised the people from 5 ridings in Canada. They're not legal. They're not legitimate.
Yep. They're not immigrants because, again, you covered this. You were on the show. I think you were on the show of November 2018, Mike and the Knights UN Migration Pact. It's up on YouTube. You can watch it. Where Canada signed in the UN Migration Pact that day on November 2018 with Justin Trudeau, basically allowing migrants to come into Canada openly without offering any experience, any job, without anything. Just come right into Canada. And 103, I think it was 103 countries signed on to this too.
I
So
remember on Facebook and on even on Twitter, I was seeing ads from the BC government for 10 years ago for helping Syrians that were fleeing the war to get mechanic jobs and skilled trades jobs in British Columbia.
yeah, but that's skilled trades.
The relocation has been going on for a long time.
No. Skilled trades are different. I'm talking about people coming in with nothing. They're migrant. They're just coming in to be here. That's it.
Well, I mean, when I say that, that's the skin suit. It's not about we're going to bring them in so they can have a new life. It's like we're bringing them in so that you don't get to have a new life.
That's right. Or you get replaced.
Right? Yeah, we don't actually care about these things, right? We're not going to use the money to send them to trade school, right? So they can go they can go run an excavator on a dam up north or anything like. No, we're just bringing them in here to soak up the money. But there is we were talking about on the phone the other day, there is a theory that a great deal of this is because there was so much money printing in 2020 when they actually tried to institute year zero. And I will try not to die on this hill, but I'm standing on it. I think that's when they made their move. And now they've got a problem because they've printed all these trillions of dollars, and you need they can't have wage inflation, right? Because first of all, that would financially empower us.
Yeah.
Right. But the other thing is they want us poor and them rich, obviously. So what do? Well, they fund the country with people, but they have to continue borrowing enormous amounts of money because they're not producing anything.
Right.
Smitty, the Epstein class will forget the day they were born. I suspect a lot of them do already, because you got to keep in mind, and I'm not saying this from any place of pity and compassion. These people's lives are hell too.
What are you replying to? Sorry, Supreme. I'm not sure.
Oh, it was just pending. I just approved it. So it's from Smitty 25CA. I don't think these people enjoy their lives very much either.
Oh, I see. You're replying to someone in the comments. Sorry, I got thrown off there.
Okay, they got the yachts and they got all that stuff, but they're beholden to do, the most degrading and disgusting things to. See, this is the thing. Like 50, 60 years ago, like this was things that they inflicted on other people, but they didn't, they'd never let their children be exposed to it. They went to private schools. They didn't do any of this stuff, right, themselves. But, they got lazy, like all people from that time did, and complacent, and thought that they were, the end of history people. And they never bothered to teach any of this to their children. They just kind of let them run wild, and they wound up drinking the Kool-Aid too.
Mm-hmm.
Like Elon Musk has a trans son.
Mm-hmm.
This handsome young man who should be wealthy and successful and the rest of it, and he's a wreck. He's a freak. Do you think Elon enjoys that? I'm not saying I feel sorry for him, but on the other hand, as a father, I kind of do. It's like, what did you think you signed up for, man?
I wanted to.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
That's the theme I'm getting at. Like, the hell is spreading everywhere. And the fact is that there's just too many people that are aware now. C-9 is just going to create a Streisand effect. Don't talk about this, don't talk about that, or else. Or else what, Brother Trucker? Or else what? What we need is mass non-compliance. If 500,000 people in Canada said, no, I'm going to say whatever I want, and screw you.
We're not even saying anything out of the ordinary. We're not even talking, you know what I'm saying? We're just asking simple questions. And if you want to question your country and why something's being taken over, why something's being destroyed, why something's not being fixed, why something isn't being manufactured, We have the right to ask that because we built this damn. My dad built this country. Okay.
Well,
So,
we have a right to ask any questions we want. They consider themselves as having the right not to have to answer any of those
well, as a
questions.
taxpayer, especially as a taxpayer,
Of course. Like down in the States, I hadn't heard, flock cameras, for example, until like 10 minutes ago, almost literally. And people are cutting the damn things down. It's like, wait a minute, that's our tax dollars to put these things up. This is the zeitgeist they're talking about. They're putting these cameras up to surveil us, and you're already not fighting crime. Like there's 1% of people are. It's not the 1% at the top that are making our lives miserable. It's the 1% at the bottom that are making everybody's life miserable, right? And the
it's the
1% are
people
the
that
ones
have
who
nothing to
create
lose.
the 1% at the bottom.
The people that have nothing to lose are going to be torching and blowing up cars, like we're seeing in Europe, all over Europe.
Yeah, that's right.
They got nothing to lose. Who gives a
Totally.
shit? Moroccan guy stabs 4 people on a train. Other guy with a hammer. Another guy with. They don't give a fuck. Who gives a
Yeah.
shit? Right? I got nothing to lose. I go to jail. I get 3 squares a day.
But this is all they've got, Mike. It's like, oh, we're watching you, so don't get any funny ideas. Well, if 100,000, say young guys just decided to openly form a movement, right? What are they going to do?
Like Ben said. Ben was saying that.
We're watching you. Yeah, we know we're watching you. We're watching you too. That's why we're doing this, pal. Come and get us, I guess. See what happens. We're approaching that Ceausescu moment where they're going to give an order or pass a law that's just one too far.
Yeah.
And no one's going to obey it. They're going to go, okay, that's enough. I've had enough. Fuck this. Pardon the vernacular. They're on the street. Or they're at City Hall. Or they're at the local DMV or, provincial office or whatever. And it's like, what the absolute fill in the blank is going on? What the hell are you doing to me? You don't do this forever. No, I mean, they're doubling down because they don't have an alternative. They don't have a reverse gear. They're true believers.
Oh, they're doubling and tripling down on us, tripling down on making our lives even more furtherly miserable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course.
Because they have no choice now.
Miserable. These people are miserable. They don't understand anything like beauty or truth, a symmetry to life. They want to disrupt absolutely everything because they get off on it. This is what makes them happy, is seeing us upset because they're miserable people.
Yeah, they are miserable.
They need prayer. Some of them need prayer, and the rest just need the gallows, frankly.
Yeah,
and
or need to go to hell.
But why is that? Yeah, well, why is that? Well, the ones that have souls, anyway. Yeah, but like I say, the bottom 1% are creating the problem. But I mean, they're flooding so many people in here; it's becoming the bottom 10%, and then life becomes unlivable. Well, okay, well, we'll own everything. Yeah, well, everything you own is covered in graffiti and literal human shit. And burned out husks, and everybody hating you.
I got
and wanting. Yeah, they want us dead. Yeah, well, we want them dead too. So that's kind of a draw, isn't it? Because we're all still alive right now.
I got someone messaged me here, emailed me, says, "Hey, Mike, I think you're right about 41% of people on Earth possessing a soul, because there's people." He says there are people that I at work or on public transit that I see on a daily basis, and I realize that they are NPC robots going through their motions in life. And if I approach or get close to them, I notice no activity, no soul vibes coming from them. But my wife, my kids, other people at work, or other people in different establishments or different correspondence I make, I could feel people's soul. I know they're real. And then there's those people, Mike, that I'm noticing that are just there to be there and not really contribute to society, but are there to be in society, to become an interference in our lives.
Yeah, it seems that way. Yeah. Well, a lot of that is the programming. I think there's always been NPCs, but they used to get a more wholesome programming.
Yeah.
Not all ended more or less in the mid 60s, I think, is when all of the, quote unquote, cultural revolutions.
Roe versus Wade.
Roe versus Wade, yeah. The sexual revolution, which was a color revolution. I maintain that it was a color revolution because it was definitely a transfer of power. You had the race wars, which the government started. And China, of course, that was a bloody mess, the Cultural Revolution they had. But the reason Mao instigated that was because a lot of the apparatchiks were getting too comfortable and they were frankly getting too corrupt. And he was still a true revolutionary. So he set the Red Guards against them, mainly. Which doesn't mean he was a good guy, but I mean, he definitely stopped China from becoming something potentially worse than it was. And we talk about Chinese style surveillance here. Well, the thing is, China has law and order and we don't. So there's going to be a reaction against the surveillance anyway, because, it's to prevent crime. Yeah, well, we're not buying that anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
so China just went on record saying 2 days ago that any foreign interference in any elections is fabricated. China does not get involved in foreign countries' elections.
Well, they want to make money.
Woo!
They're not warlike. They want to make money.
Yeah.
They're
everything is being manipulated. They're manipulating everything, Supreme. It's really.
Of course they are. Yeah, and our over here in the Anglo world, I mean, they see China as a rival now because they couldn't control it.
No. Hold on. No. I'm going to have to take that one back, and you're going to argue this with me, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
Did you see the headline 3 days ago? I made a video about it. How Canadians, a majority of Canadians now trust China with Xi Jinping over U.S. Donald Trump.
Yeah, I've seen that. I saw it on Twitter too. I don't buy that.
Woo!
I don't buy it. That's old libtard boomers. You take a poll in downtown Toronto. What are they going to say? Oh my God, anything's better than Donald Trump. What about Adolf Hitler? Well, I'll have to flip a coin on that. But shut up, racist. Whatever. Let's just stop the conversation. You know what? They think anybody's better than Donald Trump because they're retards.
Yeah.
Donald Trump isn't even Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That's an image. It's an image he built up. It doesn't mean that he's a monster or anything like that either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. He's just a venal, 80-year-old boomer real estate guy. He was a Democrat. When you talk conservative now, you're talking about a, mid-90s Clinton Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean somebody like, the John Birch Society or I was going to say Diefenbaker, but I don't even think he was that conservative really.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Canada. But so many Canadians are clueless about where their bread's buttered anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see Canada be a lot more nationalistic, but not if it's that. I want to, let's go back to John A. and reinvent this place from first principles and make it more what it used to be, because at least then it still had some potential.
So we got someone on Facebook sent me a message saying, "No worries, they're bringing in the robots and AI. Economy will fix itself."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, of course it will. Yeah, it's going to put us all out of work. I don't know, man. I don't see it. Maybe after the crash, right? Because AI is a tremendous. See, I sent you that. I sent you that page on or that article on Instagram the other day.
I saw that.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Every time they talk about AI, is this huge data center build out and all this stuff going on, and then China releases something that's just as good for 1/10 the price.
Yeah.
Like at the very beginning, after Trump was inaugurated, he had the Altman and Musk and all these the guy from NVIDIA or whatever, and we're going to spend $500 billion to make the best AI in the world, and we're going to be the world leader because of course America always has to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then DeepSeek came out like 48 hours later, and okay, well, scratch that.
Mm-hmm.
It's 90% as good and it's 10% the cost. Like it ain't happening. Someone's
asking why Fauci's not arrested.
Man. Fauci, well, you got a justice system that guys like Fauci, they're made men. Like they don't really. I mean, they could potentially be arrested. There's enough to get them. The problem is that you're going to wind up with mass casualty events. Right. It's like the Epstein thing, right? Like everyone's calling Trump all these names but you got to look at the dog that's not barking, right? If they hate Trump so much, how come Democrats aren't pounding on Epstein and his connections to Epstein 24/7? We know why. Because they're up to their knees in it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Elbows up,
Absolutely.
elbows
And
up.
Trump is mentioned in there. Trump has been a public figure in America for 40 years.
Yep.
And he's a billionaire, and he's been running with people like this the whole time. Whether he's doing the same things as they are or not, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's going to be in those files because he's a noted public figure. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
actors and philosophers and university professors and all kinds of people that were implicated in this nonsense, and not just on that little island either. Right? There's the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, and Nexium in New York City, and like the U.S. is full of perverts. It always has been,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just an elite thing, man. I mean, look at the number of cute little U.S. high school teachers get busted banging their students every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like the place is not a democracy; it's a pornocracy.
It's a pornocracy.
Of course,
Yes!
people are a mess.
That's a good way of coining terms on Mike and the Night.
I wish I'd invented that. I saw that about 10 years ago on Twitter, but no, it's basically what it is. I mean, it's all ruled by, people's basest instincts and peccadillos and whatever MK Ultra media has managed to program into the mass population. Everyone's a freak now, right? It's just depressing. But at the end of the day, the reason those files don't, such as they are, whatever's in them, the reason they're trying to knock them off the front page is necessarily because they're afraid of what's in them. It's because of what's going to happen to potentially hundreds of thousands of millions of people in America if they step on that third rail a little too hard. The amount of fentanyl in the United States. Imagine somebody taking a 50-gallon pail of this stuff and 50-gallon tote and dropping it in a municipal water supply.
Oh, it would wipe out the whole quarter of the country.
Of course it
overnight.
would. They could kill millions of people, and they absolutely would do it. That's why this stuff doesn't get out. I'm not saying that to say Trump's innocent, because you know what? I ain't arguing about Trump. That's liberal boomer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Trump is terrible.
No, it's Chinese, old people, homeless, and liberal.
Yeah, well, definitely, yeah. Of course.
But
of course, it's a mess. But that's why I say we have a competing elite, because it's self-styled never Trump conservatives that are going on and on about the Epstein thing. Nobody in the Democrat Party is doing it because they know damn well what will happen. Right? A lot of people are going to start turning up dead. Like there are people behind the scenes, guys like Bezos and Musk and that. They're just it's one of those things that there's bigger bank accounts behind them.
Right.
This dude is still stuck in the fake left-right paradigm. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. No, I'm not. At the top, it's a uniparty. I get it. But it still comes down to there's the people that see how civilization is supposed to run, and the people that want to overturn everything and think they could still have all the benefits of the civilization.
Right.
Right. And they've infested every political party everywhere. Right. I mean, the left and the right thing. I mean, that came from the French Revolution anyway. So I see what you're getting at. I don't blame you for thinking that, but let's face it, there's a lot of people on, would be considered the right side that aren't. They just aren't. Like I say, they're Clinton Democrats.
What was the original question that got you rolling?
Oh, I don't remember now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Boomers love Trump because they're low IQ, not willing to adapt to new information. Well, I don't. You know what? That's not wrong, James. You got the CBS boomers, and then you got the Fox News boomers, right? And they think that they're actually opponents. So that's the thing. This fake left-right paradigm. You're not wrong about that.
So
but
someone's saying here,
it still comes down to directing the narrative so everybody's going, at least in terms of policy, going in the same direction.
Someone's saying here, say what you want about the USA. Canada has been taken over completely by evil and the evil and the devil. F Canada. Oh no, we've been warning people about this whole thing, this whole takeover of Canada for years. I've been saying for over 10 years, America, wake up. Canada is your biggest security threat, not Iraq. Because the wildfire, everything that's going on here, the fentanyl, everything coming in through Canada, coming from China through Canada.
Yeah.
It's huge.
We're just basically a funnel sitting on top of America to send all kinds of stuff in there. But you know what? America, at least since the early 60s, has been subverting the Canadian government too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Canada that exists today, people in 1965 would have been horrified.
Yeah.
They would have said, "There's no way in hell we're doing this. We'd never have signed a free trade agreement if we understood what was going on."
Mm-hmm.
Or any of the other ways that we've gradually transferred our sovereignty elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, when I say these things, please don't think I'm dunking on America. I know most Americans are decent people. I know that. And
Oh,
I mean the
100%. I
the
love.
US Constitution, as much as I am still an empire loyalist in a lot of ways temperamentally, the US Constitution in the end was a beautiful document, and I hope that you guys actually follow it
Constitution is
someday.
what's keeping Canada in the
I hope
light.
you I
If
hope you follow it someday,
if
because
that
it will be a
Constitution
city
goes
on the hill.
dark, if America loses its Constitution, Canada goes dark. I've been saying this for over 15 years. Other content creators have taken my little spiel on this, but yeah, America's Constitution is the light, is the last thing left for the people by the people, and the founding fathers put that in place because they knew the tyranny that was going to come after. They knew. That's why you own your
Yeah, they
home
did.
free and clear. You have
Yeah,
a gun to protect your property. You have
yeah,
they put everything in very simple order to follow, and they have the Bill of Rights. They have a lot of things in line for the people by the people, right?
yes.
And
Yeah, that's right. Well,
Canada's
but
vague. It's
that's
very
not
vague in Canada.
well, it is, but the part of the reason it's vague is because, I think there was an understanding in English common law and Anglo tradition that if you have rules that are written down, then people will look for loopholes.
Yeah.
But if you're operating on principles, because we were part of Christendom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a Christian culture, and the right for a householder to keep and bear arms has been part of that Anglo culture the whole time too. Like, people think that Canadians are disarmed, and it's not true. We're the fifth. We're number 5 in the world for civilian ownership of firearms. There's 12 million privately owned firearms in Canada.
Right.
It's one for every 3 people. Like, we're not weak, and we're not disarmed. We're not any of those things.
Yeah.
It's just that I mean, look at America right now. Look at most of the what we'd call the Western world. Look at Europe. The number of 65-year-olds is greater than the number of 16-year-olds.
Yep.
And in the top, they hold all the wealth, and the children are poor, and they're fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, it's an end of history mentality. Now, these were people when they were in elementary school, or being scared to death by being, suddenly diving under their desk at various times to train for a nuclear blast,
nuclear
right?
attack. Yeah.
You can't blame them for being a little bit psyop by all this stuff. But yeah, they're not open to new information. They still think it's 1995 in America.
Mm-hmm.
And in Canada, certainly. Like, they don't understand. You talk to someone over a certain age, and they don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, why don't you just get a goddamn job and get married?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, dude, like, you really don't know what's going on, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why kids are lazy. That's why we have all these new people here, and they're even more Canadian or American than you are. They're willing to work and pull up their bootstraps and all this, all this cliched nonsense, right? I know they're not all like that.
Yeah.
But it still comes down to, you've got people that are just way too comfortable for too long.
Way too.
And life has not punished them the way that it did previous generations for believing stupid things.
Yeah.
And we got 2-3 generations of this now, but the rest of the world has already kind of been into the toilet and managed to climb their way out and have some power and some wealth of their own now. And so, no, they don't control everything the same way. They don't control everything the same way they did. They want a digital control grid over the whole planet. Well, you're not getting it. It's not happening.
Digital prison.
You have major powers that have already disconnected themselves, effectively from the American system.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they could impose tyranny here, certainly. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'd want to live in China and Russia either. But there's lots of videos on YouTube from people going all over these countries and even living in them. They're not having a problem. And you're comparing Anglo culture to Chinese culture. They don't have any history of democracy there whatsoever.
Nope.
Like, it literally doesn't appear to them as a concept.
Nope.
And here, I mean, we had really, at least in the imperial days, you had governor generals and you had a monarch, and you had a counterbalance with with a House of Commons and a House of Lords or Senate, in the colonies anyway, with the idea being, like you didn't want tyranny, you wanted to preserve that culture. They're not so concerned about it, especially since the end of the Cold War. The so-called end of history, right? That's when the elites launched their own quiet revolution, because there was no more noblesse oblige. They don't have to care about us anymore. Like it's Russia's run by the global.
Yeah, I was going to say that Russia is better than Canada today. That's what Dino Bravo's saying.
In a lot of ways, it probably is. You know why? Because Russia now is probably like we were around 1990. Like it's getting there. Like people own cars. They have flush toilets. They build automobiles. They build their own heavy trucks. They're in the process of perfecting the jet engines to build their own domestic jet aircraft, all because of sanctions. Right? The problem that we're going to have soon is because we outsourced all of those things to other countries. If they get to a point where they can impose sanctions on us, we're definitely screwed. We're going to be in the same position now as Iran was in like 1980. We're going to have to reinvent everything from scratch. And a lot of people are going to be poor and starving until we solve it.
Yeah.
To me, it's just, okay, well, let's assume that that's coming and get on with it. But you got corporations that think every 90 days ahead. And you got politicians that think every 2 to 4 years ahead. And they've got to get elected. That's their job. And you can't get elected by promising less. Yeah, and that's all up against the global, green cult that doesn't want any development whatsoever, right? Because, my planet. I mean, there are the cynical ones that started all this nonsense, but then there are also lots of very well-heeled people and lots of comfortable older people that this has worked for very well for them their entire lives, and they absolutely believe this stuff.
Yeah,
they're not open to new information either. Wouldn't you think the planet not burning up would be good news? Don't you think people would be happy if they could do that? I think that in a sense, this is what Carney's trying to do right now.
Yeah.
I think they've realized they've taken these people too far the other way, and now they need to pivot because there's been all of this sudden shift in global finance and certainly in military power. And we have to get back on some kind of recognizable track now. And now they're going to have to slowly break it to these people over the next year or so that, we were just kidding the whole time. We need to do this now.
Yeah, they're going to kind of pivot and kind of go the other way.
Yeah, so that's the thing. This 1984 stuff, it doesn't apply to us. It applies to people in many cases who are, they got 10 years left to live. I mean, they're totally in it. I mean, they're totally immersed in it. But everybody on the outside, no. Anyone out here dealing with reality as it is right now, no, we're not fooled by any of this nonsense. Well, that number's increasing every day, isn't it?
Yep.
You can't have poverty increasing in Canada among people who used to be middle class, and some of them at least some point in time going, I mean, they're either going to go full-blown tanky, like, Stalin is communist, or they're going to go, how come I can't have my own business like my dad and my granddad did?
Yeah.
How come I can't go work at a sawmill? How come
I can't get a fast food job because they're not hiring white people because they're subsidizing wages?
That's right. Well, why aren't they hiring white people? Well, that's not fair. That's discrimination. These people are the real racists. Well, these are arguments from 20 years ago, too. They've got some catching up to do. But poverty, hunger and danger have a way of sharpening the mind, don't they? Yeah. So that's why I'm always kind of saying, you just want to be on the high ground when this comes.
Oh yeah.
Because, so that you might get your feet wet, but you're not going to drown. You can stay the hell out of the way. Oh, housing will fall for another 18 months before bottom. Yeah, I believe that.
It depends how fast it falls in the last 18 months. Housing is way out of reach. Yeah. Housing should be 4 times the annual income. We're still 16, 24, 38 times the annual. Well, Mike, if you make $100,000 a year, that's 10 years. You could pay off $1 million house. No. You're being taxed to death on that $100,000. They're not seeing that. And the fuel and car insurance and everything. It's what's left after you pay your bills. That's your disposable income.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you work, I mean, 40 years ago, if you worked 3 jobs, it was to pay your way through school,
Hmm.
right? Or something like that. And the reason that you did that was so that you could get out and start debt free. But you knew that as soon as you got your diploma and got a job in a corporation or in a machine plant or whatever, you wouldn't have to work 3 jobs anymore.
Hmm.
The problem is that now people are working 3 jobs just to pay the rent and eat.
Yeah, to live a basic lifestyle.
Yeah, well, yeah, not even that. I mean,
Basic,
they just
very
don't have it.
basic,
But
minimalistic
the old
lifestyle.
folks say, what's wrong with my kids? How come they didn't do as well as I did? They must be, how did I raise such lazy children? It's like, well, they're not lazy. You really didn't work that hard either. I mean, they're not going to hear that.
Hmm.
You're not going to tell them that. That's bad news. But uh, condo bailout to keep Agenda 2030 alive. It's not about the money anymore. It's to keep themselves
We
from.
covered that.
I
We
mean,
covered the condo bailouts. Your tax dollars are going to be now covering or paying. And you know what? 97 or 96. I can't remember if it's 94 or 96%. I'm sorry about the number, but it was
yeah.
around 90 something percent of these condo bailouts are Chinese investors.
Yes, yeah, that's part of it. I just saw an interview, like Sam Cooper. He's been talking about the thing you've been talking about, the Vancouver model. But he's
Oh,
got details and stuff like that, financial institutions. And yes, this housing collapse, this housing corrections going on right now. Yeah, there's a lot of banks that are going to be in serious trouble if they're
it's
not
we're still
already.
too early. We're talking
Yeah,
about if wages and incomes need to be in line with the cost of living and food and a whole nine yards. We still need in housing. We need a 70 maybe 71% correction still from where we're at.
I agree. I
I have
agree.
to. You need to go back to those $50,000 one bedroom condos, 70,000 two bedroom
Mhm.
condos, detached homes starting at 175. Well, Mike, those are 1980s prices. No, it's look how much we're paying in tax and look how much it costs just to put fuel in your car. You got to offset that. You just can't put everything into real estate. So if real estate needs to tie into where we need to be at right now, it needs to go down another 71%.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, and we're definitely seeing a decline, but the way declines usually work is like any other kind of collapse, where 90% of the action happens in the last 10% of the time. I don't know what it's going to be, another spike in interest rates, a recession, like, official declaration of a recession or something from overseas,
Mm-hmm.
like I've said, for years now. I mean, if the Chinese decided that they were going to enforce capital controls, there's a lot of money in real estate over here that's just those properties are just going to get dumped on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Like the housing supply, quote unquote housing supply as it is, doubles and triples overnight,
Mm-hmm.
and they take any money they can get so they can get their money back out of the country. Yeah, well, that's it. And the banks will go down for sure. And then we'll have our own 2008 moment here. Well, we
Mm-hmm.
watch them write huge checks. The problem is we don't issue the world's reserve currency. We probably can't bail out our banks.
Nope, we can't.
They're going to be zombie entities. I mean, the world economy has been kind of zombified since 2008, at least over here.
I call it
Most of this
Japanification.
Japanification is valid. It's just over here it was kind of the inverse of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the stock markets have gone up ever since 2008, 2009, but the businesses, the underlying businesses are mostly dead. Like it's froth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a zombie economy at that point. And the people are being flooded in here. Yeah, you can talk, color G plan and stuff like that, but a lot of it is they need people to soak up all that extra money to
Mm-hmm.
keep wages under control. But it still gets to the point that if these people aren't productive, well, someone still has to work to pay the taxes to pay for it all.
That's right. That's right.
You know, that's yeah, like they're going to have to make some concessions, and they don't want to do that because they hate us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just going to reach a. I mean, it's just going to get more and more absurd and ridiculous, and it's hard times for everyone right now.
Mm-hmm.
Smitty, 7 million single family homes are owned outright by a senior citizen. Yeah, like they're owned free and clear.
Yeah.
The government isn't going to seize those. Now, if those people pass on and they don't have children, well, maybe the bank will take control of it, or it'll be auctioned off, or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have to. I mean, they're just trying to buy time. They want to do a condo bailout. Even floating the idea got a lot of angry responses.
And they're not
From
even
regular
Canadian
people.
builders too. It's Chinese projects, a lot of Chinese projects, because they want to obviously build the condos. Chinese bring the money over, park it in the real estate, and just leave it empty.
Yes.
They don't even give a shit if people live in them. They just want to build them to get their money parked over here.
Well, yeah, they're just safety deposit boxes outside of China, basically.
Yeah.
But now that's going the other way, and a lot of them are probably looking at it and going, well, if this goes down another 200 grand, you know, I'm either just going to stop paying the mortgage and call it a wash because they're not coming over to Shanghai to get me, or they're going to dump them on the market for whatever they can get. And I still think that's going to happen. I think we're going to reach a point in time where, yeah, they're going to have to do that. Plus, how many of those people, got that money from borrowing yen at 0.5% and, parking it in real estate, making 20% a year. Now that the Japanese yen is starting to spike, the interest rates are starting to spike. Like, this is going to unwind a lot of stuff. It's, it's funky.
Yeah,
it's funky, man. I'm shocked it's taken as long as it has.
Yeah, because we were forecasting
here.
2020, 2021 at the latest.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We're 2026. We're going into 2027 in less than 25 weeks.
Well, 2019. I mean, it was all rolling over. Right. You had the repo thing, and I mean, big box stores were closing everywhere. Yeah, like we were in it. We were in a retail apocalypse in 2019, 7 years ago, Mike. It's hard to believe how long it's been, hey?
Yeah, we are here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's why I say they tried 2020 when they attempted to implement year zero. They just went for it. They're off schedule. I mean, everything that they're doing, like everyone's already awake. They're not going to let them do it, but this is the plan, so we're going to work the plan. So I think somewhere along the line, that schedule that was put in place a century ago, whenever it was, something has happened, and these people are operating on a completely different timeline because they're not living in our reality. That's for sure. I just think that they've got some plan, and they're sticking to the plan, even though something has derailed the plan, and now they're running in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Like, it's just more and more disconnection as time goes by, and they're desperately trying to redress the balance. How is it possible this war in Ukraine has lasted 4.5 years?
Oh, it was all bouncing back money. It's a springboard for money laundering. The day the war kicked off, the video's up right there from 5 years ago. The video's up. Don't take sides. This is money laundering. Watch out. And everyone said I was fat and retarded when I said that.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, of course. A lot of that was just trolls.
Oh, you're anti-Ukraine. Everyone was putting Ukraine flags on their social media. Pro-Ukraine, Russia bad. I'm like, no. This is all money laundering, people. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't take sides.
Money laundering and depopulation, proxy wars.
Yeah.
Proxy wars, yeah. Yeah, in Ukraine, I mean, that was the most powerful proxy army that NATO ever had. It was probably more powerful than NATO's army. If Ukraine had decided we're not attacking Russia, we're going to attack Poland instead, they would have easily overrun the place.
Yep.
Yeah. White Christian genocide, ethnic cleansing. Absolutely. Look at ISIS. Look at, the places that the U.S. has been bombing and Israel's been bombing. Yeah. There's hundreds of thousands of Christians were killed in the Syrian civil war and and ISIS in northern Iraq, places like that. Yeah. Ancient Christian communities, some of the oldest in the world. Were wiped out or scattered, or the women were sold into slavery or whatever else. Yeah, no, we're right back to like 1492, man.
Yeah,
in some ways, I mean, we're right back to that.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Azov all but wiped out. They were the first to be sent to the grinder. Yeah. I think they used them as second line, like barrier troops, to keep the conscripts in the front line. But I mean, they were the quote unquote elites. So yeah, they started using those for the fire brigades, kind of like the Waffen SS. Anywhere it looked like the Russians would break through, they'd send them in there, and then Russian artillery would proceed to slaughter them. And they just keep going. Like Europe is so desperate now, they're trying to withdraw refugee status from all military age Ukrainian men that fled there, and so they can get sent back to try to keep this thing going a little longer. Like, they're just depopulating the place.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's not going to work because, once if they collapse, then Russia's going to take the pieces they want. And
of course, they're going to take the good parts.
They're not going to flood that part with whoever they want to send there. They're talking about sending hundreds of thousands of Indians there too.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what's that going to do? Well, they want slave labor to pick the crops and do whatever else. And it's,
Yeah,
well, I'm
I could
not
see
saying they
that.
won't get their way. They need to get something out of their investment there. But if they don't, well, goodbye, City of London. Goodbye, Brussels.
Yep,
You
Paris.
know, Paris. Yeah, well, Paris is already.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
already fallen. It's burning.
I see plenty of. That's the thing. You talk about China and Russia and Iran and these other places where there are literally commentators on the ground saying these people are nice and it's actually not bad here. And then you've got people that waited their whole life to go to Europe and they're walking through the streets of Paris and there's migrants everywhere and garbage and the whole place smells like piss.
Yeah, that's that
You
Japanese
know?
tourist we covered last week walking the
Yeah,
streets.
yeah. No, think about that for a minute.
Hmm. Piss.
Like we live in something just as bad as what those people have,
Hmm.
right? The difference is that Paris isn't getting bombed right now.
Hmm.
That's about the only difference. Like there was enough prosperity to go around after all. What do you know?
Hmm.
Because what is wealth created? I mean, poverty is the default state of all humanity. How is wealth created? Well, the people that know how to do it have done it. Like Iran, they keep saying they're these backwards, fanatical camel jockeys. But I mean, Iran had the fifth largest steel industry in the world, and they make 1 million cars a year there.
Yeah.
It was a developed economy in spite of the sanctions, right?
Yeah.
And people just aren't buying this stuff anymore. And
Speaking
you
of
know what?
buying
Even if it
Supreme,
was like that, why would I care? My own country's sliding into rack and run. I don't care about Iran.
speaking
We
of
have oil here.
speaking of buying, did you pick up any oil this week? Because I think they're gonna double down on this war, like triple down, because they're starting to hit other
Yeah,
they're starting to hit outside areas. They're really making this a full scale, full front, a big. This is a big deal. So I looked
yeah.
at my
Oh,
oil,
I
the
think
oil
I think
stocks.
they're desperate. Yeah.
I looked
Did you
at
buy
them.
more oil?
Oh,
Yeah.
I sold them when they went up, and they declared the war coming to an end. I sold all my stock,
Right.
all my oil stock,
Yeah.
and then I waited 2 weeks, and now it's all ticking back up. So I bought back all the same shares that I told you, Athabasca,
Good
Baytex,
deal.
and
Yeah.
I
Good
bought them all
deal.
back
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
they
No,
dropped.
I own some Chevron because they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And yeah, I bought some Baytex. I didn't have the money to do much else.
Okay.
There was some little explorer called Prospera. They actually recondition old wells in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan. That was like a 4-cent stock. So, I'll put a couple $100 into that, whatever.
What was the ticker?
But it was Prospera Energy.
Oh, I think I know these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy's name is it's something Karg. He looks he looks Pakistani, but he doesn't talk Pakistani. I think he grew up in Calgary. But anyway, him and a consortium are going around for these old wells, reconditioning them and getting them back online.
Mm-hmm.
They won't produce much, but I mean, free oil is free oil, right?
Yep. Yep.
He was on Jay Taylor. If you've never heard of Jay Taylor, he's a stock guy, mostly mining and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I was following him since about 2007, 2008.
Oh, wow.
And I saw this kid on there. So I looked into it and I was like, okay, well, whatever, a couple $100.
Yeah.
And also I've got a Junior Explorer, I've got Baytex, which is Canadian, and I've got Chevron because they're global.
Yeah.
That's all I had. I didn't have the money to make. That's not life-changing investments either way for me.
Yeah.
But I thought, oil is. The point is whether oil goes up or down. It's not going anywhere. Like the price of oil is managed,
Mm-hmm.
but especially with all these refineries getting hit.
Yeah, there's a lot of them getting hit, but we just reported 23 of them getting hit this morning. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, they keep hitting. I mean, most of what they're hitting in Russia is tank farms, which is a disruption. But
mm-hmm.
as long as the actual reactor vessels themselves are intact, these things cover square kilometers, man. Like they're huge things. So they make a lot of smoke and they make pretty pictures, but beyond that, it takes a certain amount of production offline. But it's not the price of oil itself. They could still manage that on the futures market,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they can make the price go down even if every tanker in the world sank tomorrow. But the truth is the price of diesel, gasoline, distillates,
Mm-hmm.
the real world market, that's going to tell the story. And the story we're telling is, there's definitely an oil shortage or the expectation of one.
Yeah.
That's how I see it anyway.
I'm hearing you, but I'm hearing you.
Yeah. I mean, you deal with this on a daily basis. I don't, but that's how it looks to me. Yeah. You're hitting Yeah, and if the Houthis if they close the Bab el Mandeb Strait again,
Yeah.
yeah, then yeah, we're in trouble. No, I think the reason they went ahead with this war is because they're desperate.
Yep.
This is
They're running out of options. They're really running out of boogeymen. They're really running out of distractions. They're really running out of everything, Supreme. So they don't know where to. They don't know what to do. They don't know what
they know what to do.
They don't know where
the
they're
problem,
at. They don't know if they're tricking or trading. Like we've been saying. How many
Yeah.
times have you heard me say these guys don't know if they're tricking or trading? They don't know where they are.
Yes. Yeah. The biggest problem in America is the political deadlock there is so profound that in the end, it's easier to start a war and try to get your stuff from someone else than to try to actually fix anything in the country. Like I say, the politician's job is to get elected.
Yeah.
And because it is a duopoly there, it's it's a deadlock. Right? There's no deciding vote. Like no one wins that arm wrestle. Right? Okay, well they look the other way at corruption in this district because it's going to affect the economy in my district. Right? So I mean, I'm sure 25% of US GDP is just outright fraud and theft.
A majority of U.S. exports is inflation. U.S. biggest export is inflation. They export money. They print money and they just pay for stuff that they don't have the money for. They just print it off, and inflation is one of America's biggest exports.
Yes, yeah, it is, and people are tired of that too. I mean, in the end, especially after 2022, that's why central banks have been buying gold hand over fist. Right? Because they need to protect themselves. And at some point in time, I mean, we could say, oh, well, the US or whoever's going to revalue gold. Well, the market's revaluing gold. Like I owned gold and silver and stuff like that for almost 2 decades. And, I'm seeing it even after a big crash at price levels that I would have thought I was daydreaming.
Yep.
So I mean, it's happening. Like you can't argue with molecules in physics.
That's right.
Right. I mean, you can paper over it for just so long, but Tignum, hello, dear. Can you ever see the stock exchange collapsing? Yes. Yeah, it absolutely could. I mean, we've had like in the US, for example, you've had a plunge protection team since 1987.
Yeah,
well, 2008 caught them completely off guard.
They got these dead man switches that light up or shut things down if they have to.
Yeah, they had, like, and in 2000 for that matter. It's just that when you get rid of the little crashes, because as profound as 87 was, I mean, it was over pretty quickly, right? And that's the thing. Things like that usually end pretty quickly. But 2000, I mean, they realized that they didn't intervene enough, so interest rates started dropping. And then 2008 happened because of all these other things that were going on behind the scene. And the more funny money you pump into the economy, the more creative ways people find to, get some of it for themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And in the end, when interest rates went to zero, that was right at the same time that Bitcoin became a thing.
Yep.
So I think at least part of the function of it was a liquidity sponge. I don't believe the government wasn't involved in it, but I mean, the government was involved in the creation of the internet, and they've certainly been trying to control that without success. So I mean, they do have a talent for creating monsters that get away on them too. Let's not assume that they know everything they're doing.
Right.
I'm inclined to think a lot of them have no idea what they're doing.
Again, they don't know if they're tricking or treating.
No, I don't think they do.
I'm not kidding. I know it sounds bizarre that when I keep saying that. I don't even think they know if they're tricking or treating, Supreme. I really don't think they even know where they're at, honestly.
I'm inclined to think so. Yeah. I mean, past a certain point in time, it's out of control. I mean, if if fiat currency really dominates everything, well then, why do they all hold gold?
Yep.
The United States refuses to
banks
let
have been buying
anybody
gold in record pace in the last 8-9 years now, right?
Actually, they have, yeah.
And the Chinese have been selling U.S. treasuries to buy gold too. They're selling U.S. treasuries slowly, and Russia's been selling U.S. treasuries slowly, in turn to buy gold.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you've had countries like Turkey that when this Iran thing broke out, they had a currency problem. So I mean, it dumped gold because they had to dump a bunch of their gold because it's liquid and they could exchange it for
Hmm.
treasuries or whatever else they needed to prop up the lira. Right. So you're going to see things like that too, financial crises and people dump their gold. And I'll see gold's not a safe haven, but you know what? I mean, the reason they hold it is because that's exactly what it's for,
Yeah.
because it's liquid and they could sell it instantly. And, let's face it, any country that hasn't owned gold for the last 10 years has missed out on some great gains.
Right.
So I mean, and yeah, it's just going to go up more, I think. Yes, James Cameron, precious metals will drop when a recession hits as people will liquidate to make payments. Only then will it climb after. Completely agree with you. Yeah. Yeah. That's what happened in 2008.
Hmm.
Yeah, totally. I mean, gold had bottomed out in 99, 2000. So that would have been a good time to buy during that recession. But, if you held it up till 2011 anyway, you did very well. This is the thing. Everything priced in gold since like 1960 has
Hmm.
gone down in price.
Hmm.
Like they say, oh well, the S&P has done better than gold. Well, that's apples and oranges. I mean, if you picked gold at $850 in 1980, yeah, maybe, but that's not apples and oranges. Apples and apples, right?
Hmm.
You would have to have bought gold when it was at $35,
Yeah.
or even after that. I mean, there was a big crash. Then what did it reprice at? Between $200 and $400.
Yeah.
So it never went back to that old level.
No, it will
And then
never. No.
after
Well.
after its low in 1999, I mean, it went to $1,000.
Hmm.
Actually in 2011 it went to almost $2,000.
Hmm.
Right, so you would have made out very well doing that. But it's something that you hold for insurance anyway. It's not
Yeah.
some people day trade it. I never would do that. I'm not fast. Frankly, I'm too lazy. I don't
Hmm.
want to know something that well. I want to know enough that it can help me make decisions for my life.
Hmm.
Oh, what do we got here? Russia and Iran, only countries with no Russian affiliation. That's why they're deemed the enemy. That's certainly part of it. Yeah. Yeah. When they basically began to exercise political and financial independence, when they started cracking down on foreign interference in their domestic financial affairs, yes. Yeah. I mean, Putin was a golden boy for the first year or so, but by 2007, when he gave that speech at the Munich Security Conference, from then on, yeah, he's a horrible dictator and he's the next incarnation of Hitler, and we have to get rid of him. This
Hmm.
has been the narrative, and it's pretty pathetic. It's not working the way it used to, but like I say, these people don't have a reverse gear. They have to double down.
They have to.
They don't know anything else. They have to double down. They're true believers. Let's just call it the New World Order. They give it all kinds of names, but no, it's they're true believers. But that's the thing. They're not learning. They're
No.
not learning. Learning should bring changes in behavior. It should bring changes in priority. It should be going, okay, we're in a cul-de-sac now. We need to turn around and find our way back to the highway, see where we went wrong.
That's
They
right.
can't do that. Yeah, they can't do that. And that's the thing. The good news is, yes, in the end, it will lead to their downfall. The bad news is, we're all living in their world until that happens.
Hmm. It's yeah.
Yeah,
Putin
yeah,
refers to them as loan sharks. I'm just looking at the comments here. 100%
yeah.
insurance only.
I'm going
Either I
through it
make
here. Yeah.
$200,000 or I go bust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people
Let's
are
see.
on their last leg. Supreme. Let's see if anyone's bought me a coffee here. Let me